I believe we did the right thing for Indiana schools and Indiana children.
Former State Superintendent of Public Instruction Tony Bennett is under fire this week and making headlines. He is stepping down as Florida's Education Commissioner in the wake of possibly manipulating Indiana's school grading system. But he's not staying quiet about it. What he had to say, what Indiana lawmakers are calling for, and a conversation with the representative of some of those who this affects the most, teachers. It's all coming up on this edition of Indianapolis This Week.
From RTV6, Indianapolis This Week.
And welcome to Indianapolis This Week. I'm Jenna Coy. It is a developing story that has been making headlines all week, and we've been following the latest developments as they happen. Tony Bennett, once the leader of Indiana's public schools, scrutinized after an Associated Press report reveals he worked to change Indiana's school grading system. The emails show this change was primarily for a charter school founded by a top Republican donor. Crystal House Academy was set to receive a C grade, but after Bennett's staff worked to change the format, the school received an A. In the emails to his then chief of staff, Bennett wrote, quote, "They need to understand that anything less than an A for Crystal House compromises all of our accountability work." Another email said, "I am more than a little miffed about this. I hope we come to the meeting today with solutions and not excuses and or explanations for me to wiggle myself out of the repeated lies I have told over the past 6 months." A passionate Tony Bennett addressed the media Thursday after resigning from his position in Florida.
What we did in Indiana was very simple. We found a statistical anomaly that did not allow 13 schools. Now, I want to emphasize that because there's been a focus on one school, but did not allow 13 schools to have their grade truly reflect their performance because they were unfairly penalized for kids that they didn't have in their school. That wasn't rigging anything.
Crystal DeHaan, the founder of the charter school at the center of the grading scandal, released a statement saying Dr. Tony Bennett has helped reshape education policy in Indiana to give all Hoosier children the best possible opportunity for quality education and bright futures. It is unfortunate that his actions relating to changing the grade given to 12 Indiana schools, including Crystal House, may distract from the significant progress that has been made in Indiana. Indiana Governor Mike Pence is urging the Indiana Department of Education to review questions surrounding the A through F accountability grades given to state schools in 2012 and report its findings next week.
I think our A to F grading system is extremely important. You know, performance measured is performance enhanced. I think it's important, and we worked this year with the legislature to preserve that A to F rating system. I do believe it's important we preserve the A to F system and that Hoosiers have the confidence that that's being administered properly. And I'm confident we can accomplish that and answer the questions that have been raised in a way that'll give Hoosiers the confidence going forward.
And joining us now is the person representing the group that is really feeling the effects of all of this. Teresa Meredith is the president of the Indiana State Teachers Association. Teresa, thank you so much for joining us. So first I want to ask you, what's your feeling on Tony Bennett resigning?
Really sad. Sad that it has come to this. Sad that all of the information that has come out that is making us question what he did do while he was here in the state.
What have teachers been telling you? Do they feel justified?
They do. They feel affirmed that some of the suspicions or concerns that they had are now coming to light, and they just feel that they are affirmed in the worries that they had.
Do you believe Dr. Bennett when he says that this wasn't about just singling out one school for special treatment, that these were about a dozen schools that were looked at?
It's difficult to believe that because I know there were other schools that had different kinds of data that he should have considered, some right here in Indianapolis. And when, for example, when Dr. White did approach the state board and shared some concerns, those were not addressed. And so, no, I don't totally believe what he's saying.
Do you think it was the right move for him to resign? I mean, he's not in Indiana anymore.
Well, it's hard to say. I would say that it is a form of accountability of sorts. You know, if that's what we are about in education, then the decisions we make and the actions we take, we are held accountable for them as educators. And so if that's what he believes he needed to do, then I'm glad that he did it.
Were you happy? I know you said you were sad, but did it make you feel, because you're a teacher yourself, were you like, see, you know, I told you?
Well, I wouldn't say happy. I would say concerned, because if the resignation came about from just the few emails that we've seen, what else is it that we don't know, and who else is involved?
Yeah, were there rumors that there was proof out there, that there was something out there that was going to show?
There really weren't. There really weren't. So when the emails came out, like I said, it was affirming, not surprising. We were suspicious, but there were no rumors, really. It was just a feeling that things just weren't quite right based on the way that educators around the state were treated, particularly public educators.
So now the governor has requested a review of the school grading system. What do you hope and what do you think will come out of this?
Well, it's interesting. I believe he's given a very short timeline to the State Department of Education. I believe he's asking them to report something by Wednesday at the state board meeting, which just doesn't seem to be long enough to be thorough, but perhaps it is. I think it's a good idea to have a thorough investigation and go back and look and see if there really were schools who were negatively impacted by not being given the opportunity to point out some anomalies perhaps that were in their data. And by those schools not having that opportunity, some may have been closed, taken over, teachers may have been dismissed, students may have been relocated or had to give up their community school completely. So I think we really need to know we have a right as taxpayers and as educators to get to the bottom of this and have some answers.
What do teachers think about accountability?
Teachers believe that accountability is very important. It's critical to what we do. We just ask that it be done fairly and that we be a part of the discussion of what is best and how do we go forward, how do we hold ourselves accountable, and our students as well.
Because what do teachers think about the A through F grading system?
Most teachers don't necessarily like the A to F labels. They like the concept of a school that needs improvement or a school that is performing at standard or a school that's performing above that. But I understand that the public is looking for a very simple way. But sometimes the simplest forms really don't tell the whole story, and this is a perfect example, the kind of thing that's come to light. The A to F system is not completely telling the stories of the schools that it's impacting.
Well, what is your suggestion? Because I know it does help parents, like if they're moving to different neighborhoods, to say, oh, well, this neighborhood has an A school, this neighborhood has an F school, I want to move to the neighborhood with the A school.
Well, sure, there are some things a parent can do to make sure that whatever the school's rating is legitimate and truly a good picture of the school. The first thing I would say is get into the school, go visit, interview the principal, and ask some questions about what's going on in the school. And if it's a school that doesn't have a stellar rating, ask why. Because sometimes it's a particular demographic or one area that the school is targeting and showing great improvement on, but perhaps the improvement just missed the mark. So it's worth it for a parent to ask those questions.
But that's time consuming. It's easier to just say, oh, this school has an A, this school has a B. Is there a better system then besides just putting the onus on parents? I
think they have to look beyond the letter grade. The parent can look online. There's so much available at their fingertips at any time of day or night. There's email available. You can contact almost any school administrator or educator now through school websites. So I think parents really have to do their homework if they're going to depend on this letter grade system.
Yeah, is there an issue more with the letter grade system or the lack of transparency or whatever degree of transparency there is or is not?
In terms of what parents read and understand
and what we have, the system we have now.
I think it's difficult to completely get a clear picture, that transparency piece, when I say to you that my community school is an A or a B and the one down the road is a C or a D. What does that really tell you? It doesn't tell you that the special education population in one school showed amazing growth but missed the mark by maybe a point, or that the English language learners in another neighborhood school, again, did fantastic and grew leaps and bounds, but missed it again by maybe just a point or two. And that is not revealed in a letter grade. And that's important information.
Yeah, that is a valid point. Do you think we are going to see then a change to this system in the very near future?
Well, I hope so. If we stick with the A through F ratings, I hope that there is a disclaimer or more clear information given to go with that letter grade.
Do you think there's any legal action that will be taken because of the possible changing of grades or not changing for some schools that wanted to change?
You know, it's hard to say yet, but I would say that with every decision we all make, there's a consequence, and it's either good or not good. And so I think we have yet to see what will happen.
So would you guys be part of the lawsuit, Vista?
I have no idea. It just depends on what comes out and who is impacted. If our members are impacted, it's something we certainly would review.
Well, teachers are part of the accountability, right?
Yes, they are.
Their benefits and pay can be
Correct.
affected by that.
correct. So we just have to wait and see what the investigation reveals.
All right, and then last question. Have you heard from the current state school superintendent, Glenda Ritz, about all of this?
Just briefly, not in detail. We talked actually yesterday about dibbles. I had a question from a member. I needed to talk with her about a particular assessment in kindergarten, and she answered my question for me. So we really didn't get into this story.
All right. Well, Teresa, Meredith, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're new to the job,
yes,
so
yes.
What a controversial week to begin. I appreciate you coming in, though.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, after the break, we are sitting down with two of our political insiders to get their take on this story. You won't want to miss what is likely going to be a very heated debate right after the break.
One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the Inspector General of the state of Indiana, I'm going to formally request that the Inspector General of the state of Indiana investigate this issue. That way we can put this issue to rest, because frankly, I am fearless about what they will find.
It's the story making headlines all week. Tony Bennett accused of manipulating the state's school grading system in favor of a GOP donor's charter school. Joining us now are two of our political insiders, Kip Tu and Abdul Hakim Shabazz. Guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, glad to be here.
So you just saw Tony Bennett say that he's not afraid of what any investigation would find.
Well,
should he be afraid?
That's not what he said. He's not afraid of an Inspector General investigation, which, you know, I have to say something about the Inspector General. And how it was created. It was created by Mitch Daniel as a whitewash for all the scandals that he was involved in the entire time he was governor. So asking the Indiana Inspector General, who's appointed by a Republican governor, to overlook what has happened here is like the fox watching the hen house.
So saying that's an important detail on what the investigation.
That didn't take too long to get out. I mean, no, and it's not just going to be an Inspector General who's going to be looking at how these test results were done. The House and Senate announced this past Friday that they're going to have someone take a look at it. The governor's going to have somebody look at it. So we're going to have three sort of concurrent tracks, you know, looking at these test results and to see how things were done. And what they're going to find is that there was a problem in the matrix. Dr. Bennett, when I spoke to him this past week on radio, admitted that, hey, I should have caught this early on when it came to figuring out how these scores should have been done, not only for Crystal House, but for 11, 12 other charter schools as well, whose grades also changed. I should have caught it early. We didn't catch it until the very end. I know facts are a stubborn thing when you got your teeth sucked into what you believe was a good scandal. So I don't think anybody has anything to worry about. The results are going to show that people, you know, did what they were supposed to do.
Well, that's not what the facts show. The facts clearly show that they threw out the 10th grade results at Crystal House. That's what the loophole was about in the emails. If you read the emails and you don't put your head in the sand and think Tony Bennett walks on water, he threw out 10th grade results so that he could get the result that he wanted, and he was advertising Crystal House was. Now, Crystal House is, by all accounts, a great school. They could have lived with a C for the 10th grade, and we could have had an argument about it. But no, Tony Bennett felt like, and I think a lot of other people had invested in, this is the story we need to tell here, and so we got to make sure the results fit the story. And when they didn't, they changed it. That is the fact.
First of all, if Tony Bennett walked on water, the first thing my good friend here would say is that Tony Bennett can't swim. So let's just start with that right there. And the other thing I thought has been interesting in this entire narrative, and you know, Miss Meredith was out here just a few moments ago. I mean, I think I'm get a towel to wipe up, you know, all the crocodile tears, you know, because they have hated Tony Bennett. They fought him every step of the way, and anything they could do to discredit him, discredit the governor, these folks have you know, gone to the max. Once again, we'll have 3 concurrent investigations taking place, and then I'm telling you right now what you're going to say about the results. This was just a whitewash of Republicans trying to protect Republicans. I'll save you the trouble. I'll save you the trouble of what you're going to say down the road.
I have some faith in what David Long and Brian Bosma put together. They took 2 people who are above reproach to take a look at these numbers, and I'll be happy to accept whatever they come up with, because John Grew and Bill Sheldrake have been independent kind of guys from the get-go. I will accept them. I will not expect the Inspector General to be unbiased, because he never has been.
We'll have to have you guys come back once we get the results of all the investigations. Another aspect to this whole situation that's kind of come to light now is Tina Bennett, Tony Bennett's wife, and that she has a job with Charter Schools USA, a for-profit company that was hired to take over some Indiana schools while Tony Bennett was in charge of Indiana schools.
Actually, that is inaccurate. Tina Bennett did not get the job with Charter Schools USA until June of this year.
But could it have been like we'll hire Charter Schools USA, and then we'll hire your wife later.
But you would have to assume that they would have to make the decision in 2011, 2012 that Tony Bennett, you will not be in Indiana, you'll be in Florida. And so we'll wait a year after you're gone and you lost the election that we'll hire your wife. And by the way, we'll make her regional director of Louisiana schools that have nothing to do with Indiana or Florida.
So you're okay?
I don't think it looks good. Clearly, I don't think CSUSA is a good operator. I think that Tony Bennett, a couple of months after they got here, should have fired him. Like he told me he had serious problems with him, and then he turns around and hires, his wife gets hired by him. I don't think it looks good, and I don't think it makes Tony Bennett look any more believable on this than he is believable on the standards, and I think it's bad.
Like I said, if they were in Indiana, all Indiana, then went to work in Indiana, that would be one thing. But we're talking about something that happened a year later in Florida. And by the way, Tony Bennett's wife actually is an educator.
Right.
And when my wife and I were down, actually qualified, and my wife and I were actually down in Florida visiting the Bennetts. One of her concerns had been with looking for work, and she did not want to be hired by somebody simply because she was a Florida commissioner's wife. Like most people, she wanted to be hired and judged on her own merits, and she was.
Do you think Tony Bennett's resigning was really the right move? Because didn't he have the support of the Florida governor and Florida education leaders? So why resign? He's not in Indiana anymore.
Yeah, I'm going to let you handle this.
No, not a problem. Actually, like I said, once again, this is part of the conversation that Dr. Bennett and I had. Dr. Bennett has always put children first, and I believe him and take him at his word when he said during his news conference, and then we spoke shortly thereafterwards, that, hey, when I'm now a target, I am now a distraction that's taking us away from the business of educating Florida's children, I will gladly step aside and invite the Inspector General to pay, because I got nothing to worry about, but the education of children has to come first. Now I'll let you go right
If you've done nothing wrong, you shouldn't resign. It's the fourth. I think
Anthony Weiner. Stick around.
That's a whole other topic.
Yeah. Of course, he wants to change the subject as quickly as he can to that. But the fact of the matter is, if the governor of Florida had thought that they could weather this storm, they would. There must be more there, and I think that's why he resigned.
All right, I've got to cut you off there. I know we can talk about this topic. Lots to talk about. But we're going to move on. So after the break, we'll be back with our insiders to talk about the latest on mass transit in Indianapolis and a budget shortfall the city could be facing. Welcome back. We are sitting down with our political insiders, Abdul Hakim Shabazz and Kip 2. So mass transit is back in the headlines. The Indy Connect teams released their preliminary recommendations for transit routes and station locations. Any surprises?
No, I actually thought it was very thorough, very complete. We see a line from Carmel to Greenwood. We see one airport to Cumberland. We see a Noblesville line. And I think this will be crucially important because, on Monday, there's going to be a summer study committee hearing actually on mass transit. And a lot of folks that want to see is, okay, show us the routes, show us where the bus lines are going, help us out here. Let's make this concrete a little bit more proposal. And they've actually done a really good job and have a really good starting point.
I think I agree with that, although I would say there's a couple of areas that I think are that have a lot of need that hopefully they're going to address as well, and that's certainly the North Corridor when you go from 86th Street on the east trying to go west. It's a big problem. It still is a big problem. It seems like Pike Township is left underrepresented in the program as it stands now, and so those things will have to be addressed. But they're trying to convince the legislature to let them have a vote, and so I think they're being conservative to start out with.
Do you think this is progress towards getting a mass transit system, or this is just a waste of time?
No, I actually think it is progress, and I think it's actually one of the more detailed proposals and all the different incarnations, of mass transit. I think they almost have the plan almost down to where every stop is.
Right, and where the stations are going to be.
Where stations are going to be, and normally you'll just see here's the red line, here's the green line, here's the blue line. So I think by making this as detailed as possible, they're doing a really good job. Of course, now always the devil is in the details, because now that you made a detail, people can kind of nitpick, well, why is this bus line here and then not over here? But I think they're off to a really good start, particularly for that important hearing that starts this week.
All right, now I also want to talk about the Marion County property tax credit, because the mayor wanted to get rid of it. The city county council voted down that proposal. Is this how you thought it would play out?
Well, it was a bipartisan vote, which I think is an important indicator. It's a difficult issue for everybody. I think for Democrats and Republicans alike, because I think Democrats definitely see that we need to fund public safety, but they didn't think this was the way to do it. They didn't think that raising property taxes was the way to do it. And the homestead credit is something people have relied on. The other side will make the argument that this was disproportionate on poor people. There's a big argument both sides about that. I don't know where that actually comes down.
Because the mayor said they needed this money for the budget shortfall and for public safety.
Like I said, we have a $55 million budget shortfall because Indianapolis has not been collecting income tax revenue because of the national economy. This was a way to recapture some lost revenue in a little bit of a different way. My thing is, if the Democrats don't think that, okay, the homestead tax local credit. Everybody keeps their homestead. Let's make that clear.
Right. This is the
this was like
roughly $24.
$24 over a year. Okay, fine. If that's not what you want to do, then bring a proposal to help close this budget gap that also which they haven't, which is also sustainable. Their whole thing is let's take one-time revenue, we'll do it to shore up a budget fall for this year with no way to pay for anything next year. One thing actually they could do to help the city budget is they could stop suing the city of Indianapolis for redistricting and Joe Simpson because he can't keep his mouth shut and dealing with police officers.
Those are side issues that he's trying to bring up. The question here is a question of priorities. The mayor, we had an announcement this week that we're going to rehab the canal. We've got we decided we're going to spend $4 million for a sports field, cricket field, and other things, and those things. And so, I mean, it's an important, I think, for voters to take a look at where the priorities lie. And if you got the money to spend on those types of things, then you ought to be able to find the money to spend on public safety.
All right.
92% of the budget is already spent on public safety, unless you want to end up like Detroit.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Got to cut you off there. But stay up to date on political news anytime by following our insiders, Laura, Robert, Kip, and Abdul, and our Capital Watch blog. You can find the link on our webpage, theindychannel.com. Indianapolis This Week continues after the break. There is so much happening at the Indiana State Fair today. It is Hispanic and Latino Music Day, with music playing from now until 8 p.m. on the Marsh Free Stage. And we have 2 Super Pulls happening at the fair. The Lucas Oil Indy Super Pulls will be at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. today at the Hoosier Lottery Grandstand. Admission for each is $5. And we have some information to help you save some money on your visit to the fair. New this year, Foodie Friday. All food vendors will offer at least one item at half price on Friday, August 16th. $2 Tuesdays will be back. That's where you can try smaller portions for just $2. And there are 15 special discounts being offered this year. Regular admission into the fair is $10. And that does it for this edition of Indianapolis This Week. Be sure to head out and enjoy the State Fair on this beautiful weekend, and catch all your latest news tonight with RTV News at 6 and 11. I'm Jenna Coy. Thanks for joining us.